Hi, so this is the second video in a series of videos on job order cost accounting. If you haven't seen the first video yet, you can check it out in the description below. And if you want to see the next videos, you can check it out in the description too. So let's get started. In the first video, we talked about a basic overview of job order cost accounting, how it differs from process cost accounting, and why it's useful to us as managers. What we didn't discuss though is how costs actually flow through a job order cost accounting system. And as we know, costs come in three types: material, labor, and overhead. In this video, we're going to talk about how costs flow for materials. Okay, so as we know, when we acquire materials, we purchase them, right? So let's say we purchase material 1, material 2, and material 3. And we know these materials will be used in jobs. So let's say we have job 1, job 2, job 3. The beauty of a job order cost accounting system is that it tells us where each material goes and which job receives these materials. So let's say, for example, material 1, it's only used in job 1, 2, and 3. It's actually all the jobs. Okay, let's say material 2 is only used in job 2. And for material 3, it's only used in job 1 and 3. So this is the beauty of a job order cost accounting system, is that it will tell us where are our materials going, how much we purchased of it, which jobs are receiving which materials. So the job order cost accounting system will take into account all this data and give us insight as managers on what we can do to make them better. So let's break this entire process down for the material cost. Let's start with the purchase itself. So when we purchase material, we add to our raw materials inventory because they're still raw material. We haven't done anything on them yet. And when we purchase material, we lose money or we add to our credit. So when we put it into our ledger, we have a debit to raw materials inventory and we have a credit to either cash or accounts payable because we paid to acquire those materials. So this is the first step in the cost. We pay to acquire materials and we put that in our raw materials inventory. Now, you might ask, where do we keep all this information of the purchases, of the requests? Well, we keep it in something called the materials ledger card. So in this card, you're going to see how much of this certain material has been bought on what day, how much of it is left, and all the data regarding that material. So this is on a per material basis. So each material will have its own materials ledger card. So we can track what's happening to that material. So this again is another feature of job order cost accounting, is that we know where everything goes and we know what's happening to everything. So we can make better decisions. Okay. So what's next in the process? After we purchase, of course, these materials are assigned to certain jobs. And as we know, not everything is directly assigned to a job. There are material costs that are indirectly assigned, meaning they're used for all of the jobs and we just don't know how much is it exactly used on each job. So of course, that's what we call the indirect material cost, and the costs that are directly assigned to jobs is what we call the direct material costs. So when we assign these two different costs, they're assigned differently. And you're going to see it here is that for direct material costs, they're assigned directly to the job cost sheet. If you remember in the first video, we only put the direct material cost and the direct labor costs directly into the job cost sheet. We didn't include indirect labor, we didn't include indirect material, and we didn't include factory overhead. This is because in your job cost sheet, you only take into account costs that you know are directly assigned to the job you're talking about. In this case, only direct material costs can be assigned to the job cost sheet because these are only the costs that we are sure that's been used in that job. For indirect material costs, we don't really know. We don't really know how much was used in this job, how much was used in that job. So they are assigned in what we call a factory overhead ledger. So you will see this later on how it works in the video about the overhead costs. But for now, leave it at that. That indirect material costs are assigned to the factory overhead. They are not assigned into your job cost sheet. So in the ledger, it will appear this way. For direct materials costs, they're transferred from the raw materials inventory into the goods in process inventory. And for raw materials inventory used for indirect material costs, they're transferred to the factory overhead. So this all seems so confusing, so I'm going to give you an example. Here we go. So let's say we purchased $2,000 worth of material 1 with cash. Simple so far. So I bet you can come up with a journal entry for this. It's debit 2,000 to your raw materials inventory material 1 for material 1 and credit cash because you paid out cash. So we have to keep note what specific materials has been bought. We can't just say raw materials inventory because that would defeat the cost of job order cost accounting, which is to know where each material and where each job has been assigned in terms of cost. Okay, so now we have $2,000 worth of material 1. So let's say we use $600 worth of material 1 in job 1. So like a while ago and what we said, this is a direct material cost because we know where the material has been assigned. So for the journal entry, it would appear that our debit would go to the goods in process inventory for job 1, and it would be credited from the raw materials inventory of material 1. Meaning we took away the raw material from the inventory of material 1 and put it in the goods in process inventory of job 1 because that's where it's being used. Okay, so let's say next, $600 worth of material 1 again were used in job 2. So same process, we took $600 worth of material 1 from the raw materials inventory of material 1 and we put it into the goods in process inventory of, in this case, job 2. So it will appear the same except we take note that we used it on job 2 instead of job 1. So again, this is the use of having these labels because we know where each material goes and where into what exact job it goes to. Okay, next. So what if next we're told that we used $400 worth of material 1, but they were used in the factory? They weren't used in any specific job. They were just used in general. Let's say it was used on utilities or supplies or whatever. So in this case, this is where we have indirect material costs because we don't know where to assign those $400 to. Do we assign it to job 1? Do we assign it to job 2? Do we assign $300 to job 1? Do we assign $100 to job 2? We don't know. So in this case, what we do is we assign it to factory overhead. So this is the use of having factory overhead. It's because we know this is not a direct material cost. We know that we don't know. We know that we don't know. We know that it is not assigned to job 1. We know that it's not assigned to job 2. But it is used for both. We just don't know how much exactly. So for now, we put it in something called the factory overhead. So we debit factory overhead because factory overhead is an expense account because we spent the 400, right? We spent the 400. And we credit raw materials because we used up the inventory and that's an asset account. So we credit it to make the value lower. So I hope you understand how material costs goes through this example. It makes it clear rather than those weird diagrams I showed you a while ago. It basically works like that. You purchase material, you assign it into certain jobs, and if you can't assign it directly, you put it into your factory overhead because we will be assigning it later when we adjust your overhead, which we will learn in the next few videos. So for now, this is how material cost works. I hope you learned something, and I hope that this made sense. If I didn't, please let me know in the comment section below because I'd love to do a better job to teach you. So thank you and see you in the next video.